Amanastvanna me dukkha ragadvesha bhayadaya aprano yamana supra itya Dishruti Shasanat. I am other than the mind, and hence I am free from sorrow, attachment, malice, and fear. For the self is without prana and without mind, pure and so on, is the commandment of the great scripture, the Upanishads.
So, here, as Shankara will frequently do when he makes a point, he footnotes it. Because our primary authority for Indians in this work is the Vedas. And here in the concluding portion, meaning the Upanishads. Now, understand, it does not mean that the body doesn't experience pain, that your mind might not get angry, that your intellect may not doubt. But what Shankara is saying is, ever remain as the untouched witness of us. So it seems like a paradox. Well, isn't that just being in denial about what's going on? No. We don't deny and we do not suppress phenomena. That's counterproductive, and it'll come out sideways in the end. But again, working on this whole idea of being Sakshi Bhava, taking on the attitude of the witness. So none of those reactions touch me. Let me share with you a story, true story. So I was at a camp. There was this one gal in the Chinmaya mission. Can't even remember her name. But a yogi who's been doing this for a while. And she just started a new company where she was making cosmetic processes. And she was talking about, using them and blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm a Westerner, and normally when someone has an opening like that, I sometimes think the appropriate thing to do is deliver a compliment. So I said, well, you look very nice. And I could watch what she did. The ordinary person would go, oh, you think so? You know how we do that? She was such a good yogi. I just watched her drop everything and it went straight on through. She was not going to identify with that. And we just went on with the conversation as if it never happened. Why is this important? Where we get identified is almost always on the pleasure side of the equation. So for this young lady, if she had said, oh, do you think so? Oh, thank you. Inside, I am pretty. My makeup is really good. Then when, not if, someone says you are not pretty, or you're not as pretty as the next person. I want to renounce it. It's too late. So as Nisargadatta Maharaj says, both pleasure and suffering in the world are the same thing. You can't buy into just one without buying into the other. You can be as attached as you want. Just know that if you indiscriminately revel with the objects of the senses and get attached to the happiness and pleasure they deliver, you will suffer. No escape. So here Shankara is saying, get out. So there are many, many images. Shankara's most famous is we want to have a mind like a wicker basket, and you pour water into it. You pour water into the wicker basket. Does it fill up? What happens to it?
Goes right through.
I always think of like the colander, when you're rinsing something or you're pouring your spaghetti water, it goes shh. So whatever I mean, mine information comes our direction. Empty, empty, empty. Let it pass through. Don't let it. The other exercise I do is this one. So Daniel, you have blue hair and you're 9 feet tall and you have 3 heads.
Thank you.
Is that true?
No, not as far as I know.
But then if I say, oh, you're such a really nice person and you're a good friend to me, and I like how much support I get from you, and I really enjoy hanging out with you, it is no more true. You're a jerk. You're just pompous and pretentious. You think you know so much. You're just basically an arrogant asshole. That's not true. None of it is true. It's a practice, and it's a practice we have to do in the world as all this data is coming at us. So, Vedanta is not a program of building our self-esteem. It's not about securing our personal sense of self in any way, shape, or form. It's exactly the opposite. It's giving up any effort to secure a personal sense of self. It's a program, it's a process of small self abandonment. Giving up any need to secure, protect, defend, rationalize, justify. And again, this is not a practice we do in our meditation seat. This is what we do in the world. Nobody bugs us in our meditation seat, usually. Unless your mind's returning to the past. How could he say that to me? How could she have done that? Oh, doesn't she know? Oh, I'm such a fool. How could I have screwed up so badly? Oh, I should have done it differently. Those voices you can discard in meditation. Time to do it really is in the now. Any thoughts? Any questions? Simple, but certainly not easy. All right, next verse.
Nirguno, Nishkriyo, Nityo, Nirvikalpo, Niranjana, Nirvikaro, Nirakaro, Nitya Mukto Smi, Nirmala. I am attributeless, actionless, eternal, formless, without any desire, thought, or modification, ever liberated and ever pure.
So he echoes so many of these same phrases in his very famous hymn, Nirvana Shataka. Let's go through each one of these. The first idea.
I am attributeless.
Yes. And what's the Sanskrit?
Nirguna.
Yes. I don't have any qualities. Gunas means qualities. Qualities belong to the body, mind, intellect. The shorthand form, upadis. Upadis means equivalents. But the self is without any. Oh, I thought God is love. Beyond love. I think God's truth. No. Beyond truth. No attributes, no qualities. Next idea.
Actionless.
Yes. I goes nowhere. I does nothing. It's the body, mind, intellect, impelled by the force of its past and the qualities of mind. Guna and Garva, that does all the acting. I just all of this world passes in front of me. Next idea.
Eternal.
Yes. And what word does he use there? Nitya.
Nitya.
Nitya, yeah. There's a difference between Nitya, eternal, and Sanatanam or Puranam. Sanatanam and Puranam mean ancient. The self is also that, meaning it is there illuminating everything in time. But Nitya, eternal, means that the self is outside of time and space. Believe it or not, your self is in another dimension than this space-time continuum that we have here. Doesn't seem like it, but it is. It also pervades the space-time continuum. Whatever's going on here, Swamiji used to call the Einsteinian world of flux. The self is beyond it all, yet pervades it all, and is always still and always now. The eternal now. And the movie passes moment to moment. But I is just now. Never going anywhere. Never doing anything. Eternal. Next idea.
Formless.
Nirupaham,
Nirvikalpa. Oh,
Nirvikaram.
formless, without form is Nirakar.
Nirakam. Okay. So I have no shape, no form, no anything. We think of the gods, Krishna, Lord Shiva, Durga. Those are not the forms of the infinite. It is not that which you worship here. It is formless. Next idea.
Without any desire. Nirvikalpa. Oh,
Go ahead.
no, sorry. I was going to read the next idea. Sorry.
No, near the without desire or any kind of vikalpa is just a movement in the mind. But whatever the movements are, whatever desires, aversions, thoughts, memories, reactions, they are just there in front of me. Don't really mean a whole lot in the end. And when I quit investing in them, the volume level goes way, way down. Now, there's a little bit of a very important point here. In other scriptures, they will extol the state of nirvikalpa samadhi, which is the mind state of no mind. Shankara frequently will say, aham nirvikalpo. Not I am in nirvikalpa, not I've attained nirvikalpa. I am nirvikalpa. Meaning there's no thought, desire, perturbation of any kind in me. Next idea.
Thought or modification.
Yeah, that's all added together for vikalpa.
Ever liberated.
Yes. Now, here is the great secret. Moksha, liberation, is not something we achieve, not something we attain, not something we acquire, not something we become. At the moment of profound awakening, what the yogi sees is, oh, I never was bound. Moksha is a permanent state. If you could gain it, you could lose it. What does it mean? What are you ever not you? My problem is I don't realize that what I am is birthless, changeless, deathless, without form, eternal, without any movement, actionless. It's there, but I didn't know it. We get nothing new. I just realized what I've always had. I was watching Antique Roadshow a few weeks ago. Anybody else like Antique Roadshow? I love it. So this lady brings in this brooch that was her grandmother's brooch that was left to her. Big old blue stone and a bunch of little sparkly things. She said, well, I took it to a jeweler who said it was costume jewelry, and he said he'd buy it from me for $200. And the fellow at Antiques Roadshow says, well, I have news for you. This is a Victorian era piece, and that's a blue sapphire. It was like the size of an egg. And it's set in platinum. And these are diamonds all around. I would value this brooch at $65,000. She just keeps it in her top underwear drawer, uninsured. Now, the brooch did not undergo any change. What she thought she had was a worthless piece of costume jewelry. What she found she had was a very expensive piece of antique jewelry. Likewise, you and I think myself is miserable and sad and limited and struggling and not very okay. I'm a loser. Or I'm not a loser, I'm really okay. I'm a good person. I'm a kind person. Trying to reinforce that. Not knowing these are just false ideas. So what do? We go to the spiritual antique roadshow. I go to the guru who helps me examine myself. No, you are not a worthless piece of poop. Look, you are earthless, changeless, immutable, deathless, the source of all happiness. You don't have to insure it. Always available. We get nothing new. That self has always been free. But in my mind, I just didn't know it. Listen carefully. The self does not yet realized. It's the mind. The self is already liberated. The self is already free. I just don't know it in my mind. Just like the brooch didn't change one bit, but the woman's knowledge of what it was changed profoundly. Any thoughts on this?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a couple of questions. Anyway, first one, which is the main one. We are here to hopefully recognize that we are that. That is our, not a goal, but okay, let's just say it would be a good idea
Well,
nothing
actually,
else?
the scriptures say it is the goal
Okay, it
of
is the
human
goal.
life.
All right, I didn't want to use that word, but if you are okay with it, I will use it. So if, I mean, there are 8 billion of us now on the planet, is there some kind of a shift? Or since everything is as it is, as you say, does it make any difference if by some miracle, half of the world, 4 billion people all of a sudden realize they are that? Anything change, or does it, whether 8 billion are ignorant, or all of a sudden by some miracle 4 billion are no longer ignorant, does anything shift?
What I can only share with you is what the scriptures say, because I, as Jim, am not smart enough to answer that question.
Okay.
What the scriptures say is that human history, the world's history, goes through yugas, which means ages.
Right.
And the first one is the Sat Yuga, the golden age, where almost everybody's realized, and it's peaceful, and it's harmonious, and it lasts a long time. Then that tends to fade because nothing's permanent. And help me out here, those of you who are Indian. What's the second one called? Dweep? Second Yuga? I forget. Anybody out there in Zoom land? Anyway, the second one is a little darker.
Okay.
Then Tritika, I think the third one is called, a little darker. And the fourth is Kali Yuga,
I knew we're in the Kali Yuga, yeah.
which is the shortest.
Okay. And that means how many years is the Kali Yuga?
400 million, I think, or something like 400,000. I don't know.
Okay.
Whatever it
Some
is,
amount
it's
of
long,
time. Okay.
but it's a particular amount of time. And it's when ignorance is at its maximum
Ah,
and suffering is at its greatest.
okay.
But then, because suffering is at its greatest, we actually just covered this verse in Gita last week.
Okay.
That when darkness, when unrighteousness increases in the world, I incarnate to bring righteousness and salvation to people.
Okay.
So as a result of our suffering, we invoke the infinite. And then the whole cycle starts over again. Now, that's what the Puranas, what the Vedas teach. Is it true? I have no idea.
I just wondered, because if it's all changeless and birthless and deathless, can there be a shift, or
No, you're combining dimensions.
Okay.
So there's the dimension of the phenomenal world.
Right.
It is in constant change.
Well, yes, phenomenal.
And the
Absolutely.
context, Brahman, is changeless.
Right.
So let's take it down to something far more practical, which is your and my personal life.
Okay.
So you and I are born, we have a childhood, doesn't last. We enter into adolescence, doesn't last. We become young adults, we get careers, we have love affairs, maybe we get married, doesn't last. Then we get old, and talking with my friends, it's amazing when you're in your mid-70s, mortality is right on the
Right
what
there
people
on the
talk
cusp.
about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And but me, the self does not change. But the externals, of course, they change, and they go through cycles. And for ordinary people, grow up, you grow old, you get sick, the body falls off, and you get to go do it again, another cycle. So macrocosmically, what the scriptures say is essentially no different.
Mhm.
Now, some yogis, I think it was, has anybody here read any Sri Aurobindo?
Long time ago.
Jory, have you read any Aurobindo?
I have not.
Anyway, he posits that human consciousness is on the verge of a great change. That more people are going to get more God conscious in the coming age. Back when I was a hippy dippy, we talked about this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Remember all that?
Sure.
You know, the new age of Aquarius is coming. Oh, we were so hopeful. What happened? Someone broke the Aquarian water jar. Or I was looking at one YouTube thing, it fascinated me. It was like this apocalyptic thing. All these people into the rapture, the only people who were into that. It was about the third temple was going to be built in Jerusalem. And that was going to cause the rapture to happen. Wackadoodle by my particular view. Maybe they're right. I don't know. But what I try to focus on, first and foremost, Jim, do your best not to be an asshole. You know, that's a pretty good place to start.
Mm-hmm.
Take a look at defects of character. Try not to act on them. You know, just taking on yamas and niyamas. That's a good place to start in the world to make the world change. For example, oh, I'm a vegetarian, I'm a vegan, and I'm against, violence towards animals and stuff like that. But will I scream and yell at my partner? You bet, Will I say horrible things about the politicians I don't like? Yeah. That's hinsa, that's violence. You've missed the point. Yes, it's important to worry about turkeys and pigs, but it's far more important to pay attention to what we say to the person next to us, what we think about people we don't agree with. Can we become aware of those cognitive dissonances? I believe in nonviolence and compassion and forgiveness, except for these people. Most of us have these moments of cognitive dissonance. So I don't know if this is useful, Pam.
I was just curious, but
What was your second question?
oh, it can wait. We can go on.
Anybody else have questions? All right, next one.
There's one more. Ever pure.
Oh, is it
Nirmal.
near Malam, right?
Yes.
Malam it means dirt. So nirmalam means without dirt or without taint. So when I look inside and I notice the knower, there's no spots or dots of anything like that. There are no good qualities in the self either. I am neither vicious nor virtuous. I am nirmalam, without any dirt, without any taint. Is that it? Is there more?
That's it.
All right, next verse.
Aham akashavat sarvam bahir antargatochyutaha sada sarva sama shuddho nisango nirmalo chala. Like the space, I fill all things within and without. changeless, and the same in all. At all times, I am pure, unattached, stainless, and motionless.
Yes. So he repeats many of the same points. In Gita, Krishna starts out by saying, all this is strung on me like jewels on a thread, giving us the sense that the self is in everyone. That's a place for us to start. So I see the room from my viewpoint, you see the room from your viewpoint. I'm aware of my body, you're aware of your body. I'm aware of my thoughts and feelings, you are aware of your thoughts and feelings. But when I look inside, when I look behind my eyes, when I notice the knower, Chidakasha, the space of pure awareness, you do the same thing. Chidakasha. The self in you is not like the self in me. It is the self. And then using this image of space, there's space in the water glass, there's space in the room. If I move the water glass, I'm not moving space. Is the space in the water glass, or is the water glass in space? So, for example, if Daniel tunes up his mind and looks behind his eyes and sees nothing but the vast emptiness of space of consciousness, make sure you don't turn your head because you're likely to hit punit with the self. No. The easiest way to understand what's really going on, the self is not in you, you are in the self, is to go to the dream state. So the profound question is, do you incarnate into a dream? What's my experience in a dream? Who had a dream recently, last night? Okay. I was in a dream and I was in this house and I was going from floor to floor and I kept looking for the door to get to the outside and I could never find the door. I would be going into some other space. It was very stressful. All right. So in the dream, I had a dream body, which was I call it the locus of perception. I peeked out of that dream body into the dream world, into that house. Now, was I in the dream or was the dream in me? Well, it feels like I'm in the dream. But no, I'm not in the dream. The dream is in me. So also this personal sense of self, this Pamela or Soundarya or Jim, the self is not within, but rather that body, mind, intellect, and that sense of individuality is in consciousness, just like the dream is in me. I am not in the dream. Just like the space is never affected by the container. If I break the glass, the space is not altered one bit. So also, whatever happens to the body, mind, intellect never touches me. Don't believe me. Keep checking out yourself. throughout the day, over and over. Stop your mind just a little bit. Notice the knower. No, notice the knower. See if you have changed in any way. Nope. Still Chid Akasha. Still the space of consciousness. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Nitya Shuddha Vimuktaika Akhanda Ananda Madvayam Satyam Jnana Manatmanam Yatparam Brahma Ahamevatat.
Akanda Ananda. I love that. Yeah. Translate it, please.
I am verily that supreme Brahman, which is eternal, pure, ever liberated, one, indivisible, blissful, non-dual truth, and of the nature of existence, knowledge, infinite.
So that first idea,
Which is eternal.
and does he say Nityam again?
Yes.
We've gone over that before. I am always here. I'm always now. Next idea.
Pure.
And was it Vishuddha or
Nitya Shuddha.
eternally pure, actually? Always pure. Nothing that happens touches. Now, this brings us to an important point. All great spiritual teachings, in some way, invite us to live in the present. Be here now. The problem for many of us is I can have regrets for the past. Depends on how bad a rascal you've been. I was working with a young fellow today, cocaine addict. Enormous regrets. I mean, first and foremost, how he trashed his own life, but also the damage he did to family, to his partner. And it just weighs on him so heavily. And it can be just one event that hangs out, something maybe you did as a child, or things you may have done and said in an intimate relationship. Maybe you cheated and the other person couldn't deal with it, and it fractured and broke up the relationship. You have terrible regret. So there are some tools. This I shamelessly borrow from the 12-step tradition because it works. We may not be able to change the past, but we can make amends. You can go to the person that you have harmed and said, I was in the wrong. I'm sorry. If it's an ongoing relationship, you not only apologize, but don't do it again. Amend means to change, to make better. Sometimes we can't. Sometimes there may have been a fracture with a parent. And we come to realize, well, it wasn't all their fault. I was a bit of a jerk too. it's too late, they're dead. You can do things like write them a letter and maybe burn it in a sacred fire. But much of the past we can clean up. Maybe we stole at one time in our life. Young people go through a period where they shoplift. What can you do? Try to get an estimate of how much you stole monetarily. Go back to the store and say, 20 years ago, I shoplifted from you. Well, I wasn't here. Here's a check. If you don't want it, donate it to your favorite charity. There are so many things we can do. If we owe money, that can really fracture personal relationships. If we borrow money and don't pay it back, go to them, tell them you're having trouble, make a payment plan. Clean it up. This takes enormous burdens and helps heal the ulcer of regret. Some yogis will say, can't change the past, move on. I want to nuance that. See, the truth is, at a very deep level, we intuitively know we're all one. And when I do something that hurts or harms another person, it makes me feel terrible. And much of it I can repair. Any thoughts on this?
I think this is where I need to bring up it wasn't a question, it was an experience, because I think it relates to what we're talking about. Because these, as it said in the commentary, these are exercises for meditation. So, as I was telling you earlier, I'm cleaning out my basement. So I'm finding all these things that are stirring up memories. So I did an exercise. It's something personal. It's called, anyway, it doesn't matter, but you go into the pain body. And as I went into the pain body, I was in a cave, and I'd surrounded myself with all these quote unquote treasures, these things that I was finding in the basement. And I realized I was in a cave full of jewels. And I was kind of in a woe is me situation, like I'm alone in my cave. And I completely reversed that in the midst of this meditation. I'm alone in a cave full of jewels. So the mind, as you say, it's about the mind shifting. It went from a sad, lonely, I'm alone in my cave with all my former jewels, to I'm alone in this beautiful cave full of all these amazing jewels. And there's no separation. I am the jewels. And it turned into a beautiful meditation, a beautiful visualization, if you will.
Okay.
It was, it was kind of, these images, this description as we go through this book, these are jewels in a way that we can use to wake up. And so I just wanted to share that.
Okay. All right, next idea.
Ever liberated?
Yes, we've talked about this. It's not about my ulcerated personality becoming fixed-heeled better. It's about getting out. I'm already free. Again, the way to heal the mind is to get out of the mind. That doesn't mean we just put this miserable mind in the corner. It really does shift when we get out of it. And it means the acceptance, not only of the virtuous parts of us, but the gnarly parts too. Inside of us, at the level of the mind, is the whole human experience. And we need to accept both dimensions. This is what the Jungians call embracing our shadow. And then see, none of that really belongs to me. I'm never the witness. Next idea.
One.
One.
Yeah.
Yeah. One.
Hmm.
I'm not spiritually schizophrenic. There's only one of us here. Self in me is the self in all. I am Atma. This self is Brahman. Next idea.
Indivisible.
I can't be partitioned, cut up, stuff like that. It's funny. You hear in modern psychospeak all these funny things. Well, I'm working on my relationship with myself. As a yogi, I have no idea what that means. What's having a relationship with what? Oh, I'm embracing my inner child. I've got an inner child inside, so I'm being good to my inner child. Yoga would say that may be very useful at one level of our development. What Shankara is saying is, no, there's only one who sees the phone I do. That's yourself. The only self you're going to get. And my problem is I think that self is something other than what it is. You do not have many selves. Indivisible. Next idea.
Blissful.
And we've talked about this, that the self, Ananda, bliss absolute, is the fountainhead. It's the source of all joy. When I'm dancing with an object in the world, when desire and object of desire become one for a moment, the craving ceases and the mind gets a kiss of the bliss of Brahman. It happens in deep sleep. No object, no person is causing the bliss of deep sleep. The mind is essential for suffering. The mind is not necessary. What do we learn as yogis? Self-realization gives us two things. First, I call it existential freedom. It's okay. Nothing's going to touch you. Nothing can harm you. And two, I finally found out where happiness is. Happiness is the mind letting go of the world. Absolutely. So now it rests in the self. Gita says, when a person casts off all the desires of the mind, O Partha, and is satisfied in the self by the self, then they're said to be a person of steady wisdom. Next idea.
Non-dual truth and of the nature of existence, knowledge, and infinite.
Non-dual truth. So why do we call it Advaita, non-dual? Literally means not two. Dui is two. Because the fact of our experience is I see stuff. There's subject and a bunch of phenomena. It seems like two, but it's not two. What appears as a world, what appears as a body, what appears as an ego, it's nothing but pratibimba, like reflections in a mirror. Nitya, illusion. Vaitadya, false, appearing real. Looks like two, but it's not two. And that last one after non-dual?
And of the nature of existence, knowledge, infinite.
Yes. Pure Sat, pure existence. Chit, pure consciousness. Forever that way. How many verses did we do so far?
33 to 36.
We've done four?
4.
All right. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, so I think we'll stop here, but I'll leave some time if anyone has questions tonight. Pamela, you're always good for a question.
I'm tapped out. I did my two.
Anybody else? Anybody in Zoom land? All right, then we'll just quit a bit early tonight. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you all.